doing this as a music exercise will have carryover function. And that's one of my favorite, is creating that lifespan memory, like a song a decade, and you can even expand on that. But really go through, what is this song about, and what are these memories and emotions and decisions associated with each song. So that's our cognitive area. Now for the speech area, let's say sometimes your vocabulary isn't as expansive as you.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the TrustCasting Podcast, where experts become authorities. I'm Zane Myers, your host. Today, I'm speaking with another remarkable guest who's built incredible trust with their clients. Let's dive right in. Okay, welcome to the Holistic Entrepreneur, and we have a special guest on, Nick Zaborowski with Sky Music Therapy. And I was actually really looking forward to this. It took a long time to kind of get you on the podcast, but I was looking forward to this because I think your approach is really unique. I hadn't really heard of it before. I saw the one movie going back a number of years about School of Rock, and that was the only thing I could relate to what you do. And so Sky Music Therapy, tell me what it is that Sky Music Therapy does, and then I want to go back and do some regression as to how you got there.
Let's do it. So nice to meet you, Zane. So I'm based in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, United States of America. And at Sky Music Therapy, we are a neuro rehabilitation company. So I studied at Temple University in Philadelphia, PA, and achieved the board certification music therapist from the Certification Board for Music Therapists. There's about 11,000 of us in the entire United States. Then I did my training with the Academy of Neurologic Music Therapy. I welcome everyone. If you can even check out their website as we speak today, all the information and research on how music is effective in rehabilitation for everyone in the world is available. It's NMT, as in Neurologic Music Therapy, nmtacademy.co. Excellent website and resource for everything we're going to talk about today. So I always knew that I wanted to do something with music, discovered music therapy, went to college for it, and then I took the advanced training in neurologic music therapy, which specifically focuses on the carryover function of everyday tasks for those who are suffering from neurologic conditions. Think Parkinson's disease, Broca's aphasia from a stroke, multiple sclerosis, traumatic brain injury, and even going down to working with children with varying levels of autism spectrum disorder. So that is what I do. I work with lots of individuals. I have an office in Bucks County and go to homes, but specifically I use the neuroscience of music in order to rehabilitate those with neurologic conditions.
Well, that's so. Take us back to the beginning. What drew you to music? Do you have a background in music? When did you realize it could be more than just entertainment or art?
So in high school, when I was looking at careers in music, I knew I wanted to do something with it that wasn't exactly performance. I asked to shadow a music therapist in junior year of high school, and it was specifically, in that case, working with older adults. So that's where my real passion came from, is actually working with those with dementia and other age-related illnesses. So once I saw that music can actually be used as a form of therapy, it's not just music in therapy, the music itself is the therapy. So seeing music as therapy, I realized I have to go to college for this. Turns out, since the 20th century, you can be certified as a music therapist in the United States and even throughout the world. And we're thought of as along the lines of physical, occupational, and speech therapists. So knowing that I could work with people interpersonally and help them achieve their goals and actually see an impact in everyday life, I knew it was my calling. But it was really after I finished college and started working with other groups of people, specifically with real world problems, meeting people with multiple sclerosis who aren't able to walk for 5 minutes without being winded, working with people with Parkinson's disease who keep falling and are discouraged from walking, working with children who are not able to express the words "I feel frustrated," and realizing that I could use these targeted interventions in order to make those goals a reality for them. And we're going to break down the neuroscience of why that works today. It's kind of this cycle effect where I noticed a problem.
Before we get into the neuroscience, I want to get into the people part of this, because I think that this will interest our viewers the most, to kind of get them hooked on the subject, to want to hear the rest of the science behind it. Tell me a couple of situations where, like, even you were surprised at the results of what happened.
So the first one I want to share is actually the most famous example of one of the examples where I heard music therapy, and I actually applied it myself. So have you ever heard of Gabby Giffords? She's an American congresswoman that actually suffered a gunshot wound to the left side of her brain, and she suffered expressive aphasia. Mm-hmm. Through music therapy, specifically a technique called melodic intonation therapy, she was able to regain her speech. Because speech is focused in the left area of the brain, engaging in music, which is a full brain activity, she learned how to speak again. So this was such an inspirational story, and I couldn't wait to use it one day. So I recently used the same techniques with a patient, without going into specifics, an older gentleman with dementia and had a stroke in the left hemisphere of his brain. So he has expressive aphasia. So what that is, think about like a hurricane happening in your head, Zane, where all the words are cluttered, they're under the drawers, everything in the room is blown out. And when you want to express something like, I want to ride in the car, or I have to go to the bathroom, you can't piece the words together, or you're using similar words. Like you may say bicycle instead of bathroom. Now you can imagine how extremely frustrating this is for your loved ones to not know what you want. So with this gentleman, the technique, one of the 20 techniques we use as neurologic music therapists, is called melodic intonation therapy. So I hum a melody, and then I sing the phrase, I have to go to the bathroom. And we're tapping, and the patient is repeating it with me over and over again. And I start to fade out the tapping and singing. And now the patient, who wasn't able to say, I have to go to the bathroom, is singing the phrase. And then that creates what's called neuroplasticity through global activation of music in the brain. Now, through practice and repetition, he's able to tell his daughter, I have to go to the bathroom. We literally made a new neural pathway in the brain to express his needs. And this works with all people who have expressive aphasia. We can try this. What the research says, it's been working, and we continue to use it, and we've had incredible success with it. On the other end,
I need to interrupt you just on a personal story, because I wish that I would have had this interview about 10 years ago. My father-in-law, he suffered a fall, and he developed aphasia, and he was all the time, you could tell he was home. in his brain he was there, but he couldn't. He would just say the wrong things, and it was so frustrating for him. You could just tell in his face, I want to say this, but this other thing comes out. And I felt so bad for him, because intellectually you just recognize, you could see the light in his eyes that he was there. But it was all trapped inside of it, and very frustrated. I wish I would have met you a long time ago, like 10 years ago, honestly.
And you know what? Even though we're in different locations, we could have achieved this on the computer. One of the blessings that came out of the lockdown 5 years ago is that my field kind of exploded. As neurologic music therapists, we're forced to work with those online. So these exercises we use online, it's better to use microphones in order to reduce the latency. But even though there's not a lot of us in the world that do what we do, these computers allow us to work with anyone of all ages from the comfort of their own home. So you know what? There's still people who need this work. So we're getting the word out, and we're doing it. But yeah.
Anyway, that was has a personal effect on me just to think about that. That would have been fabulous. So I interrupted you just because I wanted to throw in that, personal side of the story. And I'm sure that there's lots of people that can kind of relate to this same story, because this is not unusual for somebody to get aphasia from some sort of head injury or something. I mean, you must have multiple stories that are similar to that.
Yes. And what's really important that you highlighted is the frustration, not only for your dad, but also for you, where you're not able to see what he's trying to express. So that is kind of the cycle I was talking about, where it's really rewarding to see them kind of have that relief that they can say, this is what I'm trying to say. Now, also keeping in that nearby category. So moving over to cognition, my original passion for music came from working with adults with dementia. So dementia is projected to grow substantially from where it is now by the year 2050. And it's going to be more and more of a problem, even though we don't exactly have a target on where this comes from. So I have a technique called musical mnemonics training, where I work with individuals with dementia and I teach them through song and rhythm, let's say their morning routine or their address and their daughter's phone number, or even teaching them the names of their children again. So you can imagine the face of someone's daughter to see their mom remember their name or be able to recite their address and phone number, which is this really valuable piece of information that a lot of therapies try to do, but translating it into a music exercise is really the key here.
So can you explain? Now I'm getting into the science part of it. So see, I have this list of questions. I'm not even going there. The science part of this. So when I think of, I was just telling somebody the other day that we used to recite this song in like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, when the teacher came in the room, and I can remember the words to the song just like it was yesterday, and so it seems like that music kind of resides in a different area. It's sometimes when you, if you're an actor and you're learning a script, that can be challenging just to remember all that. Or if you're a salesperson, you think, I'm going to need to say this and this and this and this. There's so many places where you kind of need to remember what it is that you're saying. But sometimes when it's in a song, it's just easier to remember. Can you kind of talk about the science behind that?
Absolutely. It's the reason why kindergartners learn the ABC song to a melody. I have the same type of experience where in fifth grade, I chanted all my prepositions. We did it to a metronome, and I can still recite about, above, across, after, against, among, around, beside, and then also the 50 states and capitals. So when people chunk information into a musical context through rhythm or through melody, it activates more than one area of the brain. So here's really how it works. So at a high level, what is neurologic music therapy? So when the brain has parts that has specific functions, like the motor cortex responsible for movement, the occipital lobe responsible for vision, the auditory cortex responsible for processing sound. When we listen to music or even engage with it through singing, even playing an instrument, even if we're not a musician, the entire brain is lit up at the same time. So if you were to see like your brain in a heat map, all the areas are working in conjunction even just listening to music casually. So think of all the areas of the brain activated at the same time. Memory, the ability to focus and pay attention, executive function in our frontal lobe for decision making, emotional processing. And we didn't even get to motor movement and processing speech and language as well. And here's what's so incredible. There is no other stimulus that we know of in the world that can activate the entire brain like that every single time. The reason is because music is an umbrella term for the elements in music. Because think about rhythm, the timbre of the different instruments, the emotional saliency involved in lyrics, the pitch, the dynamics, all of these factors make the brain work together in order to perceive it, in order to perform it, and in order to have a cognitive experience with it. So, because the brain is fully involved and, let's say, lit up even just casually listening to music, or especially when engaging with it, this creates neuroplasticity, or the creation of neural pathways in the brain. And here's where it's really important. This occurs in a bihemispheric fashion across the middle of the brain called the corpus callosum. This is why someone with expressive aphasia can learn how to speak again, because while the speaking area is damaged, we can recruit the remaining strengths from the right area of the brain through dedicated music exercises in order to use the strong parts of the brain to make new pathways. A great analogy I love is like when you're driving on the turnpike or I-95 and there's a road blockage or like an accident, you can still get to your destination by taking the off ramp. So music works the same way by creating those pathways in the brain. But here's what's really incredible. This is not a Western or even like an American philosophy. 97% of all people in the world objectively respond the same in the brain to music. This doesn't have to do with language or culture. Our brain all reacts the same way as a language.
So I'm just thinking in my mind, and I think of mantras that are hummed or sang. Is this kind of, are you activate? And people who use mantras and sing them or hum them, and there's even religions who do this, say that, that these things happen in the brain. Is that kind of, are they using music therapy either unknowingly or maybe they do know it?
The mantras in the brain and concentrating is absolutely having some kind of neurological effect. That's proven through research. Now, the spiritual domain of it is not something that's exactly my expertise. I'm fully focused on the functional carryover into movement, speech, and cognition. But to say that has a purpose is absolutely an understatement. It has more than a purpose. It's actually rewiring your brain through the mantra itself.
So I was just talking to an MD who is a sports performance expert using hypnosis, and he was discussing all about neuroplasticity and accessing different parts of the brain to kind of change your ability to perform in a new way. So it's surprising. I mean, almost back to back. I just talked to him a couple of days ago. Let me see. Let me go through my list.
Yeah.
So how is it different using music for relaxation versus for therapeutic purposes, or are they similar in ways?
Oh, you can absolutely use music for relaxation. Let's say in a recovery sense. So when I'm working with adults who need, like, let's say multiple sclerosis, and we want to relax the diaphragm before working on vocal exercises, we have a technique called OMREX, OMREX. They're oral motor respiratory exercises. So we do specific breathing where you breathe in, let's say for 8 beats, and then you can breathe out for 16 beats, like a hissing sound, in order to really activate the diaphragm in order to relax before working. But I will say that the domains that we work in, movement, speech, and cognition, they all come from this evidence that started in the 1990s. So this information of neuroplasticity was really discovered when fMRI imaging came out. So fMRI showed us that music is a whole brain activity. And then that information, for those wondering at home, that's called the rational scientific mediating model. That allowed us to see that we can improve movement, speech, and thinking through music exercises. We have the 20 techniques. We apply it through what's called the TDM, the transformational design model. So basically, when someone has a need, we add a step compared to the physical therapy and occupational therapist to turn it into a musical exercise. So let's say, Zane, if someone needs to relax, how can we turn that into some kind of musical component? Well, we could put on a metronome and we could hear 8 clicks. We could breathe in on, let's say, a dominant chord, and then I can play the tonic chord, the 1 chord, and breathe out for longer than we breathe in order to activate that parasympathetic nervous system with that long exhale. So the point I really want to drive home is that it's my dream that neurologic music therapy is synonymous with physical occupational, speech therapy, etc. And the real key difference is we translate exercise into a music exercise. And that's my job and my expertise is doing that. So turning that breathing, that deep breathing into some kind of music experience using specific counting and the musical logic too. 5-1, dominant to tonic is really how I would go about doing that specifically.
So how do you get, I'm really curious. To me, there's actually, it makes logical sense. And I think, and I put myself in my own mind, my ability to concentrate and remember things if I think about music. But I imagine there's a lot of people who are quite cynical about the belief that this is, not some woo-woo kind of thing. Do you run into that?
So here's what I have to say in response to that. Neurologic music therapy, we are all institutional members of the World Federation of Neurologic Rehabilitation. So on the WFNR's website, it shows that neurologic music therapy is evidence-based practice. Everything we do comes from evidence and clusters of clinical research. And in the 2024 United States Veterans Affairs and Department of Defense Stroke Recovery Guidelines, we have one very important technique called rhythmic auditory stimulation. It is recommended in order to improve gait, walking for veterans who are recovering from stroke. And this is not just America. In the 2019 Canadian Stroke Rehabilitation Guidelines, rhythmic auditory stimulation, again, is called best practice. The reason for this is because music exercises are low cost. They're non-pharmacological. We don't have a pill to give this to somebody in. It's very accessible. We could do music exercises in person or over the computer. And when done right, they often don't have, there's not a side effect, for example, like a pharmaceutical would come with. Now, I would say that the woo-woo aspect that you said is not exactly the thing not exactly the buffer or wall that I encounter the most. It's really, let's say, not thinking of music as a way to achieve neuroplasticity through exercises. So I think that really driving home that someone can walk, think, and speak better using music exercises, getting that into someone's psyche is probably the most important part for them to be open to it. Now, I haven't had people really be against it in terms of clients, but explaining it to other medical professionals is definitely an important task. We call it advocacy, and really saying it in a way that they understand it. That's why I love to use the physical speech and occupational therapist analogy. Is a great way to connect. And don't get me wrong, a lot of us work interdisciplinarily. So I have patients that I see the assessment, or I give the speech and physical therapist my assessment, or we share each other's and make sure we're working towards the same goal. So that it is a really important aspect of what we do. And some of the top rehab centers in the United States have employed neurologic music therapists on the team working as well. So we've come a long way, Zane, because music therapy actually began, as we know it, after World War II. Soldiers were coming home, around 1945, and we didn't know what is a way without medicine, without something going into their system chemically that can help them. So we noticed that music actually did some kind of change, and it's been studied over the years. In the 90s, Dr. Michael Tout from the University of Colorado started putting together these clusters of evidence we know is the rational scientific mediating model, and now we apply it to literally change the brain in the chemical level without having to take anything besides do the actual music experience. So we've come a long way. We have a long way to go as well, but I think this is going to be a household term by the year 2040 easily.
So give me a practical application that I could use, that I could take out of this and would. So let's say as I get older, many people, and me included, it seems to me I don't remember some things that I feel like and I stay really active. I still continue to have birthdays though, and intellectually I stay active, and I am really active in learning new stuff and technology and AI and all this kinds of things. I really love the the learning. But it seems like my brain does not absorb material. I have to work harder at it. With each passing year, I have to work harder to get my brain to accept the information. And so I just do. I love to work and everything. But is there some way that I could use music that would improve that ability to remember things and improve my brain function?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you one home example for each domain. There's the cognitive, which you said. We're also going to touch on speech, and then we're going to touch on movement or sensory motor. So to answer your question directly, in terms of cognition, how do you improve your memory and how your memory functions? Well, we know that just listening to music on a regular basis will improve your memory because of all the areas of the brain that are activated while you're listening to music. But more specifically, I would love it if you created, let's say, 5 songs, Zane, and every song represents a different period of your life. So I want you to listen to the song. Let's say a song from childhood, a song from teenage years, a song from early adult life, let's say 30s and 40s, and then let's say in current life. So a song that represents almost a decade at a time. And I want you to take as many notes of the memories as you can as you listen to the song. Now, this technique we do is called AMMT, Associative Mood and Memory Training, where you're going to go through what are all the memories and what are all the aspects of the song that are sparking and firing as you're listening to it. Now, you training, writing this down and thinking critically of it is actually going to be your memory journal, and it's going to improve your ability to recall information after you hear music. As you practice this, it has a carryover effect into everyday life and will improve your everyday working memory. That's the most important part about what we do, is because it's great if we see progress, like in the office, in the clinic, but if you want to remember your shopping list, if you want to remember what your schedule says for next Saturday without opening your calendar, doing this as a music exercise will have carryover function. And that's one of my favorite, is creating that lifespan memory, like a song a decade, and you can even expand on that. But really go through, what is the song about, and what are these memories and emotions and decisions associated with each song. So that's our cognitive area. Now, for the speech area, let's say sometimes your vocabulary isn't as expansive as you get older. Let's say the word is on the tip of your tongue, but you can't get it out. Mm-hmm. Just casually singing in the shower or singing while you're commuting to work or while you're working, it will move the Broca's area of your brain in order to make the connections to keep your vocabulary sharp, especially not even the vocabulary, but the musculature of your mouth to communicate very clearly with other people. And then in terms of motor and movement, walking with music, specifically what we do music therapy for healthy aging, where we find what your cadence is. So there's like a steps per minute scale that every age group has, and it even goes down to men and women. They walk at different speeds. Let's say you walk at an average of 100 steps per minute. So what I would do is I would encourage you to walk with a metronome playing at 100 clicks per minute, or find music that plays at 100 beats per minute and walk with it, because it will actually improve your gait cycle, it will prevent falls, and it will increase your stamina as you walk. Runners even do this, where they have music that is at a specific speed to keep their cadence up in order to finish that 10K, half marathon, or even full marathon. So that's kind of a comprehensive, holistic way that I would say to use music in regards to healthy aging. Movement, walking with music, specifically dialing in music that matches your cadence, singing as much as you can in order to keep your vocabulary sharp. And then in terms of cognition, examining the memories with specific music and time periods, because you're training your brain to think critically, and that will carry over into everyday life, even to hopefully your calendar for next Saturday night's plans.
So let's say as I'm thinking this through, I think, my wife says, can you go to the store and go get this and this and this? And I say, sure. And then I start to go out, and she says, oh yeah. And can you get this and this? And then I'm just, as I step out, one other thing, can you add on there? And then, so it was like, I had 3 things and I didn't have any problem remembering that. Now she made it 5, and then suddenly it was 7, and it's like, oh crap, I got to go write a list. Can I use? Is there a way to use singing to improve that memory cycle?
Going back to your mantra question. So the technique we would use for that is called musical mnemonic training. And if you're walking out the door, Zane, you're not able to make a melody and a song from the front door to your car in order to help remember this. What I'd like you to do is to turn it into a personal chant. So let's say it was eggs, chicken, turkey, and cheese. So I'd really like you to have fun with it. But as your wife just told you that information, while it's fresh in your mind, tap your leg. We're going to engage the motor cortex. Eggs, chicken, turkey, and cheese. Eggs, chicken, turkey, and cheese. And I'd like you to do that. There's no set number of time the research says works, but let's say 5 to 10 times as you're putting on the seatbelt. And that will enhance your memory because you've actually created a new neural pathway by reinforcing what she said. Because remember, when your wife speaks to you, the area of the brain, your auditory cortex is working, a small area of your brain is lit up. But when you take the information she said and you put it into a rhythm, boom, you're getting that neural connectivity across the corpus callosum. You're activating the motor area of your brain. You're saying it out loud, so you're activating the speech area of your brain, etc. So rather than just hearing something, you repeating it back while tapping your leg and maybe even humming it if you like. Eggs, chicken, turkey, and cheese. Or putting it, if you know the melody for NBC, you could say, like eggs, chicken, turkey, and cheese. That's a fun way to take it with you. And that will absolutely increase the odds that you remember it at the store without writing it down.
So if I'm doing a keynote speech or something like that, I could actually kind of cheat the process a bit by doing it to a song to help me to remember the entirety of the speech without. I'm just thinking ahead.
Yeah, I think what a great thing you could do is like bullet point the speech in your mind of like, let's say the three to 6 categories you're going to speak about, and do what we just did, but with the categories. And then once you're in the category, it'll start to kind of flow out. One exercise we do specifically in terms of like speech pacing and control is called rhythmic speech cueing. And it's basically speaking with a metronome. So it's going to look like what we just did. But if you're tapping your toe, or let's say kind of tapping your fingers, like your index finger to your thumb, or tapping the side of your leg, having some consistent pulse to entrain with as you speak will help the control of your speech and the control of how your brain is processing the information, so you're not overwhelmed while public speaking. It's a trick. I actually learned this from a grade school teacher, but it was reinforced through my neurologic music therapy training, that when you speak with a metronome on a steady pace, you have more control over the words and thoughts that you're expressing. So while I was saying that, I was actually tapping my knee.
I could hear it.
And I want to say, for anyone listening at home, a metronome is not something that you have to go out and buy. If you go on the Google and let's say you type in the browser 60 BPM, this stands for beats per minute, you're going to get something that looks like this off of YouTube. And then you're going to click on it, and it's actually for 30 minutes long. Just something unique you could try.
Well, that's handy.
It might
that's
not,
good, because I'm thinking that if I was out walking or whatever, I could.
So if you can read the newspaper with that, if you read your speech before your keynote presentation, even at work, or even if you have that playing in a headphone while you're talking to your granddaughter or grandson on the phone in order to organize your thoughts in your speech, that is an excellent form of free practice for you to do in the daily. Now, maybe it's annoying to walk with that. If like 60 is pretty slow for a cadence, it would be more like between the 90 to 110 beats per minute as you're walking. It might be a little more interesting to you if you look up songs that are 105 BPM or beats per minute and walk with the music at that speed. Now, of course, it's best if someone verifies that, because some playlist you may find it's not exactly that. But this is a great free way to try these things at home in order to increase your stamina while you're walking or to increase the intelligence of your speech for sure.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the business side of your business, because sometimes people get they're getting help and advice from you as a music therapist, and you have a completely different hat that you have to put on to run the business. You have books, you have advertising, marketing, finding new customers. It's just like a totally different thing. What do you do on that side of the business, or are you just established enough where people just come to you?
So I think in terms of business, the most important thing, first and foremost, is establishing that solid reputation, because the business really flows when people reach out to you, specifically through word of mouth and referrals, having a solid website, and being present in your community as much as possible. That's why one of my favorite ways to work is to go to people's houses, and then you have their caretakers or loved one watching me do pre-gait and gait, advanced gait exercises with them, watching me work on their speech with them. And then they go out into the world and say, hey, this guy, Nick, he's like a neurologic music therapist. He's helping my dad talk. And the way that they explain it to other people, that's just going to be a cycle of them telling it to the next person. And all of a sudden it comes back to you where someone says, hey, I'm interested in this. My mom has a lot of troubles with memory recently, and I was wondering if you knew any cognitive rehabilitation exercises. So yeah, that word of mouth and establishing a reputation and doing evidence-based work and really trying your best as a clinician is a great way to expand, even though I'm in a very niche category. And just talking about numbers here specifically, there's about 11,000 board certified music therapists in the United States. But in regards to neurologic music therapy, there are 3,500 of us in the world. There are 3,500 of us. So it's spread. If we wanted everyone who needed rehabilitation to receive NMT, which would be an absolute dream, we would be spread very thin, and you would put tens of millions of patients for every single NMT that there are. So there's definitely, I'm not worried about a shortage of work. It's most important for people to see what we do, and speaking about it with you is extremely important. Now, on the business side, as you said, yeah, there is wearing a hat. Specifically in my state of Pennsylvania, you actually caught me at a great time. State legislation in the Pennsylvania, United States, just introduced a bipartisan bill from both sides of political parties to recognize music therapy as a licensed practice in Pennsylvania. So I don't want you to think that I'm not accredited, but here's what I mean by licensed. It means that no one can just call themselves a music therapist. Right now, someone could call themselves that who's never went through the 1,200 hours of internship training, who's never done the certification board exam, and who's never gone through the NMT Academy's training in order to become what I am right now. And the thing is that while music is extremely helpful and can change the brain, music can also cause harm if it's not done correctly from a therapist. So it's very dangerous for someone to call themselves a music therapist when they're not trained in it. And our clients and our patients out in the world, they should be receiving the services they think we're getting. So there are about a dozen states in the United States that recognize music therapy as a licensed practice, and they add the L in their acronyms in their last name. But it would protect the field, but it would be so much more effective. What makes it so much more effective is it protects the patients, that they know what they are getting. Now, that's going to be really important in terms of business, because that will help to bill insurance in my state. So medical billing in America is a really interesting process, and I think that it will be neurologic music therapy will be a much more household term when we can effectively bill insurance. Now, we do have a CPT code handbook that we have specific codes for gait rehabilitation or speech exercises, but sometimes it can be hit or miss when you're trying to bill insurance with what company they're using, what type of Medicaid they have, etc. So there is a balance act to it, because I'm going to someone's house and helping them do gait exercises so that they don't fall when they walk from the couch to the bathroom. But then you have to think about the billing, and you have to think about how to organize what you're doing to prevent to insurance one day, because there's just so much more work to be done in terms of representation for what we do in the United States and throughout the world. So it is a mixed hat. It is definitely a double hat trick I'm wearing all the time.
So most of it is probably pay for service. I mean, as opposed to insurance, because the insurance companies don't, if they can get away with not paying. And not that insurance companies are all bad, but they're mostly bad. Mm-hmm. And they're out looking out for their shareholders. I guess that's just the way of the world. But and the only way to get them to comply is to pass some laws, and that's a whole other. We could go on for 10 podcasts on that subject, at least, maybe 100. So probably most of yours is just direct pay for service, which.
Yeah, there's that. And then there's another option that other therapists that you can also do is fundraising. So you can also fundraise in order, if let's say you have a program in a hospital, if you're a nonprofit, you could fundraise that pays for the therapist to provide those services as well. So we do have some options. There are grants, for example. I've received grants in order to work with children with autism spectrum disorder. So we do have some avenues, but it is moving in a positive direction. It's starting to move at a quicker pace than previously other states in this country have done. So there is a very positive outlook, and we're just looking in the future. In my head, I'm thinking 2030, 2040. What's this going to look like? And it's really only green. It's really upside.
Between here and there, how do you get new patients? I mean, you're out there, treating, and really the best advertising is actual results, but that can kind of go up and down and up and down. How do you even that out? Do you do any kind of advertising or marketing to, get the word out there other than, just straight referral?
There's the referral, there's the website, which a lot of people contact me through. Of course, there's social media as well. But what I try to do is I try to keep a caseload that's a little bit bigger than I'm able to hold, so that if some were to drop off in your scenario, that I'm kind of at that baseline. And then that's where you go with, you might have an employee or contractors who are doing the extra work that you have, even if it's just temporary, because there just like any type of therapist, there's those who are full-time employees, part-time employees, small business owners, contractors. So in our community, we all know each other very well, and we use each other as resources, whether I need someone to cover this area or someone calls me because they can't drive to my area, but there's a patient here and I can be a subcontractor under them. So having the network and being connected to the other music therapists in your community is a really important way in order to keep that baseline at all times, through the good times and through the more challenging times, for sure.
Oh, that's great. So I think I mean, I could go on with a whole bunch of questions, but I think we've covered the basis of it. I really enjoyed this, and I thought it was kind of a different topic. I really was not in tune with this going on, other than I wouldn't even come to you except that somebody referred me to you and said, "Oh, you need to talk to Nicholas Zaborowski." Do you go by Nick or Nicholas?
Either's great, and the last name you said perfect.
I bet people screw that up on a regular basis.
Thanks again for joining us on the TrustCasting Podcast. If you want to become the trusted authority in your market, you know what to do. Subscribe below to this channel and apply to be our next guest at TrustCastingPodcast.com. We'll see you next time.